I'm wrong, I'll give out apologies and I'll move forward. I feel justified with
I think you're
what the
justified.
rules were that enforced and with the rules that the tournament organizer put in
Well, and
place.
You said right there, if you were in the wrong, you will apologize. You are not above admitting that. And I want to get into that today with you. Welcome back to Midweek Meta. I'm your host, Maddie. I'm joined by my kind of co-host and occasionally their guy, Nate. What's going on, man?
I'm co-hosting now. I don't know why you're giving me that kind of attitude.
But as you guys can see, we do have a special guest this week. Chandler, what is going on, my man?
What's up? Not much, just chilling. You guys good?
Everybody know this is Chandler. He is our head judge at Salt City Events, the TOs that do our events here in Utah. We got Chandler on for a very special episode today. If you haven't watched one of the most recent episodes about some interesting things that happened at our latest tournament, Tropic Thunder 2. We're going to go over some stuff, but before we get into that, Chandler, how about you introduce yourself, tell people who you are, what you do.
Yeah, what's up? My name's Chandler. My Discord handle is kind of loopy, so you can call me Loopy online. I don't care what you call me. I am relatively new as far as Magic players go. I wasn't like born playing Magic.
What?
I know people who've been playing Magic since before I was born. Maybe that carbon dates me or something. But yeah, that's kind of crazy.
That's Nate right there.
I started playing in Ikoria, I think, right with the broken companions. So that was a really good introduction.
Hey, absolutely. Look at your judging now. So was that good?
No, goodness, it's awful. Nah. So I like to play CEDH. I like to judge CEDH. I think Magic is an incredible game full of incredible rules and intricacies, and I just think it's amazing. There's infinite possibilities, and I want to know how they all work. So that's kind of what drives me. I love the game. I also love the community. Something that that the Salt City guys have been trying to do, and me included in that, since I'm kind of the judge for that, is we've just been trying to build a community. We've been trying to do it for the love of the game.
Nate, how about you? How you been lately? It's been about 4 days too, but how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good. Been doing a lot of reading, a lot of watching after everything kind of happened and everything went down. So I've been busy.
Okay.
I've been busy.
Well, if that wasn't slow enough for you guys, we're gonna cut things a little short on the small talk, and we're gonna get right into something we've hinted before. We were just at Tropic Thunder 2. Congratulations to Jack, you won it. It was awesome, man. TNT for life. I'm all about that. I don't mean to steal your thunder, man, but something happened in that tournament that we need to talk about. And luckily enough, the head judge likes us enough. He's come on to talk about it with us. We're gonna discuss some things. We're also gonna get some examples out there for more people in the world. But before we get into it, there's two terms that we got to talk about that are heavy. The first word we're going to talk about today is bribery. The giving or offering of a bribe. Easy as that. Not too bad. The other one we're going to talk about today is collusion. Secret or illegal cooperation or conspiracy, especially in order to cheat or deceive others. Wait, isn't that CEDH? I'm just joking.
You just described every Swiss game.
Every Swiss game, right?
That's how it goes. That's how it goes, man.
You're right there. We're going to be, just so everyone's aware, this is going to be a heavy topic, but we're going to try to keep it light. There's going to be some topics here that are heavy, but we need to discuss them as a community, as a judge, and as players. Nate and Chandler, how about you guys give me your guys' opinion on what do those two words mean in the Magic world?
Yeah. So as far as bribery in the Magic world goes, it can mean a lot of different things. And I'll let Chandler take collusion as far as his opinion goes, especially as a head judge. When it comes to bribery, things get a little wishy-washy. You could offer money. You could offer a split of the prize pool. You can offer someone a point if they weren't going to get a point in a CEDH tournament. The problem with that kind of behavior is that it promotes bad actions. And people don't want that in their CEDH tournaments. They don't want that in any kind of tournament, right? Regardless of whether or not it's Magic related or not. There's been some talk about what happened. For those that aren't aware, they've probably seen the video on our channel, that we're talking about a collusion call that happened at Tropic Thunder 2. And we want to preface this by saying that this is not to put We did not put it up to put the player on blast. We are not going to mention the player's name or anything along those lines. That's not what we're here to do. We're here to discuss either how we can maybe change it or just talk about this kind of problem. As some people may not see it as a problem, some people may. As far as bribery is concerned, that's just kind of what immediately comes to mind, is just like offering cards, money, part of the prize pool in order to benefit from the tournament. But Chandler, in your words as like a head judge, obviously bribery is pretty easy to understand, and you can give us your definition as well. But as far as collusion goes, what are kind of your best ways that you define that?
Yeah, so I do really quick want to go over bribery, because that actually has to do a lot with what I want to talk about today. So the Magic Tournament rules, the MTR, describes bribery as the decision to drop, concede, or agree to an intentional draw. So this cannot be made in exchange or influenced by the offer of any reward or incentive, nor may any in-game decision be influenced in this manner. So the main thing is it says any reward or incentive. We can talk about this later. We can also talk about it now if we want, but that is something that has kind of been like a heated talking point in there's like a few Reddit posts on the video that was posted of this actual judge call and ruling. I've put this in a few like judge discords and talked to multiple judges about it, and that's kind of something that's big. Is in the MTR, it states the offer of any reward or incentive. And in the infraction procedure guide, what it states is anything that is outside of the game. You cannot have bribery if it's something that is inside the game. Bribery is only going to be if you have an incentive, like $20, like the FNM promo. Like you could even say that something like a decision in like a future game or match, like you don't counter this in the yada yada, right? Like outside of this game, we do this. The problem is when something happens and you're given a bribe of sorts for something that is in game. Is that considered bribery? Because the MTR and the IPG would say no, but this is for 1v1 formats, and doing this in a multiplayer setting seems to be a lot different. So that was one thing that I wanted to go over. We can talk about that later. As far as definitions go,
no, you definitely got us like on that. You got us like a simmering on the pot there, so that's perfect there. Let's us think about it, because that wasn't a question we had. So perfect. Bribery, and so we got bribery, collusion, and MTG.
The great thing, that's sarcasm. The great thing is that collusion does not really exist anywhere in the Magic Tournament rules or in the infraction procedure guide, the two documents that we use for judging at competitive rules enforcement level. It doesn't exist. It's something that it has to do with bribery. It also has to do with improperly determining a winner. But there's no set lines on it. Not that it's very clear cut, but it is a little more clear cut in a 1v1 format rather than in a multiplayer format where you can maybe collude with one of your friends that you have a predetermined outcome that you want to happen, and I'm in the top 16 and I'm paired up against my friend and he needs to win here to be in the top 16. I'm just going to throw to him so he makes top cut. That could be considered collusion. Maybe it's a little more clear cut than something like what happened in this clip that's going around. I have a few different definitions of collusion. I actually have the same one that Maddie had. That's directly from the Oxford Dictionary. And I like that it says, it like expresses intent. It says, especially in order to cheat or deceive others. I think that's a good way to put it. The other definitions that I have here, collusion could be defined as when someone uses a prohibited method or incentive to influence the outcome of a match or game, or two or more players working together to reach a predetermined outcome. Okay, and that is pretty much how I see what collusion could potentially be. It's something that is honestly pretty hard to pinpoint. And if an allegation of collusion comes up, there are so many things that go into play. I recently watched a video about collusion and kingmaking in CEDH, and the author of the video made a good point that if you have somebody who has like a Thassa's Oracle and a Demonic Consultation on the stack, and it's one of your buddies, and somebody tries to counter it, and you want your buddy to get in, again, because you're in the top 16, I want my buddy to get in, and I Pact of Negation their counterspell, so that my buddy's demonic consultation can resolve. It may be kingmaking, it may be collusion. Probably not kingmaking. It sounds like it's more like a collusion, but where is the infraction? That's a legal game action that can be taken, and who's to say why that player is taking it? How can you prove that that person is trying to influence the outcome of the game? And who's to say that that's not advantageous for them? So there are a lot of gray areas. There are a lot of blurry lines
Oh,
that we
definitely.
try to navigate here. So as far as collusion goes, there's no direct answer. That's part of the reason why I wanted to get everything up here, is because I honestly think that it's a problem. I think collusion is kind of an epidemic in CDH. I don't think it is. I don't think it's a play pattern that is healthy for the format or is healthy for new players who want to join the format.
All right. That's perfect,
So
Chandler. Yeah,
I want to bring it up, and I want to just generate some buzz about it. I want people talking.
Yeah, I'm all for it. I'm glad we could actually talk to you about this, because you can give us a different context that me and Nate don't have, where we don't see all these judge calls, we don't see all these attempted collusions, and yeah, we just see the case. We'll play and we hear judge. That's all we hear, and then we might hear about it later in the small talk between pods. But
Yeah.
you see all of it, so you get a different, more perspective. And I hate to say it, but we have the more perspective of being at the table, where we're like, oh, this doesn't feel right. I feel like they're working together. We've been in those pods, right, Nate?
Right, yeah, absolutely. Because to clarify something, as far as me and Maddie were concerned, we were third parties recording this event. You know, we were there and we witnessed this. Both me and Maddie were at the table, and that also, I feel like, changes a bit of this dynamic a touch. Because if a collusion call happens, Chandler, you said it perfectly. It's like it's a gray area. It's hard to determine what you feel is collusion and what's not. And with this particular scenario, when not only do you have players saying what happened and you feel as though you made the correct judge call, but then, we also were pulled aside, and the only question you really asked us was, is that what was said? And we said, yeah, it was. And that was it, right? That we didn't have any other input outside of that. And to also bring up something important for people to be aware of is that tournament organizers are allowed to have specific rules outside of the MTR. If they feel like they consistently deal with a player who is, I've brought this up before, but like smells horrible. But as a tournament organizer, you are allowed to say like, hey, we expect a certain level of cleanliness. Otherwise, we'll probably have to remove you. And in the case of Salt City, they said if this kind of things comes up, we want to hear about it. We want a judge call and make a decision based on that.
Things get changed, and if you have prime examples of it happening at multiple events, or you notice it happening, maybe it's not our events, but maybe it's Colorado's events, or maybe it's New Mexico's events, and we go down to those hangouts like, hey, these events like Chandler, like they run weird ones. And Chandler might reach out to those judges. Hey, do you guys notice this happening? And he might reach out to the TOs. Things happen. That's what we want to happen. Talk to this communication, and you nail it right there. Let's all talk about it and communicate that. Hey, I've noticed a lot of players are doing this in games. That doesn't feel right. It feels a little king-makey or bullying. And Chandler, you've got called on that before. That one person doesn't want to draw before the pregame and says, no, I got to play it out. The other three are like, okay, we're just going to kill you out then. We'll take you out, then draw. We don't care. And isn't that collusion? Like, isn't that like what we just talked about? Because they're secretly planning to take them out, but they don't always say that. That's the downside. They don't always say the words. But
yeah.
But not to cut you off, Nate, but that's just great. I just want to pause right there, and like, we're here to talk about the community, and I want people, please comment down below your thoughts too, and if you've experienced these. So
yeah, and then I do want to say that exact situation where you go into round 4 and round 5, and it's 3 people or 2 people that do want the draw, and then 1 or 2 people that don't. That is one of the like hallmark situations of what we like to call collusion. But that's just the thing, is that in the tournament rules, there's nothing against that, and it's not an infraction that is covered by the IPG. Where do you go from there? For this tournament, like we said, tournament organizers can put in place any rules they want. If you have problems with people shuffle cheating in CDH, then you say, we have a rule where anytime you shuffle your deck, you hand it to a different opponent who hasn't shuffled it in the past 2 times it's been shuffled, and they do 2 shuffles and they cut it. You can propose rules like this if you see patterns of behavior that you wish to avoid in your tournaments. And for Salt City, collusion and intentionally drawing especially when you have 3 people that want to and 1 person that doesn't. That has been a big thing in some of our tournaments that a lot of players have spoken out against and have said that this doesn't feel good. It feels like a breach of the social contract. It feels like it shouldn't be allowed. Why is this happening? It's something that the community has kind of told us that they don't like. And the tournament organizers that I work with, they have also stated that they do not believe that that is upholding the integrity of the game and the integrity of the tournament. If you have multiple players who are coming into a round with a predetermined outcome that they would like to happen, and they do everything that they can to make that predetermined outcome happen. Nothing against it in the rules, doesn't feel good, doesn't feel right. What do you do about it? So the tournaments that we have hosted for the past, man, I would say like 6 or 7. It's been quite a few. It has been the tournament organizers' decision that we are going to start enforcing kind of a split between bribery and improperly determining a winner, erring more on the side of bribery because it's usually something like a match point that is used as an incentive to collude.
But I've heard
Yeah.
people buying other people's entries into tournaments, and they get the prize for it, but then both people are in a top 16, like they're going towards it. If we don't know, like it's just a judge, if you don't know that this guy paid for option player B, paid for player C, but they're in top Swiss, like 5th round, but player B
Yeah.
needs to win, wouldn't player C and Ventilize try to help loot that? Like, I'm trying to give like an example, like that's something that happens.
No, that's actually a very good example of collusion. I think that sounds pretty clear cut, where you have one person who has an incentive outside of this game to not win and to have somebody else advance in the bracket. And it's not because it would be better standings for them. It's not because it would look better for their tiebreakers. It's not for anything that is within the game. It is for something that is completely without the game, which is surprising.
A great point right there. You said within the game. So if I know, there's another example. We use me and Nate here. Me and Nate are playing a pod with Joey and Sam. Sam doesn't have a chance. He has to win to get in at all. But if I draw with Nate and Joey's okay with drawing, can I play for more for that draw incentively? Because our tiebreakers are fine with the draw. Like, is that okay? Like, I'm sorry I'm asking these weird questions. So I just want to because people can.
These are the exact questions that I want that I want people to be asking, people to talk about, because I have done a lot of research and a lot of talking around in the past 4 days since this happened, and I've learned a lot. And that's the exact question: is where does it become collusion? Where does it become something that's like an outside influence? You in that situation, let's say like you're at 10 points, right? And you would benefit highly from the draw. And you don't think you have a good chance to win this game, but you think you can probably make it out if it's a draw. You're going to play for the draw.
Which is
you're
wrong.
Playing for the
wrong.
point. Is it?
It is though. You're playing to win. It's play to win.
It's your best out. It's your best out to advance in the tournament.
Okay.
So should you be penalized for playing to your best out to advance? Like if I'm the Tiam player and I'm playing Tiam stacks and there's 3 Rogside players and I'm just like, okay, I'm probably not going to win this. I just need 1 point to make it in. I think seed 3 just needs 1 point. I don't think seeds 2 and 4 even have a chance. Hey, I'm just going to state that. I'm just going to say, hey, if we draw here, I think both you and I would have enough points to get in. The cutoff is usually 11 points. I think my OPW is pretty high. It was last round. What do you guys say that we draw? What incentive are you offering? You're not offering an incentive. You're politicking, and this is a social game, and you are playing, even in words, you're playing to your out. So there is a very fine line between what is considered collusion. Is that actually, should that be against the rules? That's something you can do in 60 cards. You can do that in 1v1. You say, hey man, you're already in top 8. Just a draw here gets me 1 point. And that gets me enough to top 8. I'm down to draw. And your opponent says, nope, right? I want to play it out. And you say, okay, let's play it out. And you get to the end of game 1 and you're in a really commanding position. You want to draw now? Nope. Okay, I'm going to win the game. Okay, let's go to game 2. Commanding position again. Do you want to draw? Nope. And then you get beat. or you win.
Mhm.
Who's to say that you proposing a draw isn't in your best interest? Because most of the time it is. The problem, I think, that our tournament organizers and that I have is that this happens a lot when it is not in every player's best interest.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when it seems like there's a shift in what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And by acceptable, I mean socially. As we've said, there's really not anything in the rules to safeguard against this.
Yeah.
You can't tell me that I broke a rule, casting my pact of negation on your force of will to protect another guy's win con. What rule did I break?
Douchebag
Even if I
rule?
don't have enough mana to exactly, it's the social contract. So there's my whole thing is
That's like
I
that's
honestly
a rock and a
don't
hard place,
believe.
man. It really is. It's
Yep,
like
I honestly don't believe that. What am I trying to say? Comprehensive rules wise, I don't think there's much you can do for collusion. I think that it is more of breaking the social contract. If you lie in a game against your three opponents in round one, and you say quarter calling X equals 2, and they're like, "Ooh, I can counter this. What you gonna get? I don't know. Probably just like a bloom tender or something. You'll get a bloom tender. I'll get a bloom tender. Okay, I let it resolve. Okay, Thassa's Oracle, ETB, Castana Pact.
Chandler, have you
It's
done this to
legal.
people?
It's legal. You can do it. I have not.
That sounds like you have. Sounds like you have, Chandler. That sounds like a guilty
I've
man.
court of callinged for a Thassa's Oracle for sure, and it felt great. But that's something you can do. There's nothing in the rules that says that you can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a breach of the social contract. And anytime you play against one of those other opponents, they're not going to listen to a thing you say. They're going to point you out first. You won the battle and you lost the war.
Yo, person in the gray sweatshirt, don't make a deal. They're a piece of crap. Don't make a deal. And then they're just known for the day. Like it happens. Like you said, you win the battle, but you just lost the war of the tournament because no one's going to make a deal with you for the rest of the day.
And I think that is ultimately where these tournament organizers are coming from. That is why they decided to make an addendum. We've actually talked about this, that we have a verbal addendum, which is not very strong. It's not very good. There's not really a way to enforce a verbal addendum. So I can see why this ruling that I had where I disqualified a player for this is very controversial. One, because collusion doesn't exist in the MTR or the IPG, and two, because it doesn't even exist in the written addendum that we adhere to. It is a verbal addendum. So that's something that we're working on is there something that we can put in a written addendum that would safeguard against collusion? And we can talk about that later.
No, absolutely.
But that's the reason is these tournament organizers decided that that is something that they are going to penalize. So we, for this tournament, treated it as bribery. When this player made this offer, and I believe they were player 2 in the video. Player 1 is going to combat player 3, so player 1's like right here. Player 3 is right here. They're the one that have the entomb on the stack, and then player 2 is the one that's doing the talking. There's a lot going on. A lot of what is said is speculation. It's educated, but a lot of it is speculation. So when this player says something, when player 2 talks to player 1 and has this moment where it definitely seems like they are trying to work towards a predetermined outcome that the other 2 players do not agree to, it definitely seems like it is collusion as it was outlined by the tournament organizers. Honestly, it's almost the exact scenario that I said to not do in the player meeting because it will be considered collusion and it could be grounds for disqualification. It's almost the exact same scenario. The only difference is it's 2 who don't want to draw against 2
who do.
Not even 2 against 1 who is trying to convince another to draw. So instead of a 3v1, you have a 1 trying to do 2 versus 2. It's almost the exact situation that was advised against. So when this happens and judge and I'm called, and when I see that it's the same player who we had this allegation in a previous round and who has a reputation of doing this, those are all things that you have to take into account. And so since it was their second offense this tournament for something that the tournament organizers had explicitly stated, was going to be grounds for an infraction, I made the ruling. That ruling would normally be a game loss, but if we talk about bribery in the infraction procedure guide, it states if the player was aware that what they were doing was against the rules, the infraction is unsporting conduct cheating. The penalty for unsporting conduct cheating is disqualification. So that's where I'm coming from here is the TOs, like, to start at the beginning, collusion doesn't exist in the tournament rules for Magic.
Yep, makes sense.
The TOs don't like it. They think it's bad. They decide that it is going to be considered an infraction.
Okay.
And that it's going to be left up to the judge, to an impartial third party, to determine if it is or is not collusion. And this player broke that infraction. So that's what it committed the infraction, not broke the infraction. They committed the infraction. So that's where it comes down to here. That's how it was handled. I believe that it was handled correctly given the circumstances. What I want to know and what I've been pushing for is commentary. Is this okay? The way that tournament was organized, I believe this was a fair ruling. If the TOs didn't have this policy against collusion, do you think this would be a fair ruling? If not, where's the line?
Yeah, that's the hard part. Is like,
where do we draw it?
Yeah.
What's the infraction?
You hear that, Watsy? Watsy, make a line for us, please.
I would love a line. You talked about a few different things, and I'm curious as to what you guys think.
No, absolutely. So I hate to say this.
If there is no, so if the TOs at the beginning don't say anything about collusion because it's already defined either in the tournament rules or the infraction procedure guide, what would you guys think it should be defined as?
I have to say it's what we actually talked about. It's the whole point of walking to a game. You can look at the scoreboard real quick. You know what it is. You can say, all right, me and player two, me seat 1, seat 3, we need a draw and we're fine. Seat 4 needs a win. Seat 2 could use a win, but they don't need it. I'm going to do everything I can to not say this. That's the worst part. I wouldn't say it. I'm not going to, pardon my language, I'm not going to tell the table, I need to get a draw until someone has a win on the stack. And then I'm going to help defend the win or provide the win, like the window, you know what I mean? Because if we can get the draw through the table, cool, we're good to go. But if I provide the table up first, then they're going to be already looking out for everything I do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
So to me, that sounds like kind of masking your intention, which is totally something that you can do and that you probably should do in a game of CEDH.
You guys say this, your opponent does not have your best interest in mind. And that's where I fall to.
Yeah.
But if I know, like, I hate to say it, I've been to enough tournaments, and if the TOs didn't make enough comments, there's certain, you can tell, like, there's groups, like posses. It's high school. It's any tournament I went to. I've gone to Denver. I've gone to San Diego. I've gone to a bunch of them. There's posses of people, and you can definitely see them in the morning, and then you see them at lunch, and then you see them at the end of Swiss. And, like, that's what I mean. Like, if you know that group is always together, and they're in the same pod, and for some odd reason it's a draw, I might go investigate. Does that make sense? I don't know how to make that a rule, though. Like, how do you make that a rule? Because that's the social.
How do you?
Yeah.
What infraction would it be? That's my question.
Yeah. So I guess.
So, like, let's say that it's not improperly determining a winner, because let's just say, for argument, that it's not. Let's say it's not bribery. Let's say that it's just an infraction. What infraction is it?
I guess I don't know, Nate. Do you have something?
Well, that's just where it becomes difficult. That's why this whole thing has sparked a lot of controversy, right? Is just because it's difficult to define. You know, you're 100% right. What do you say? How do you go about it? And I think in this instance, it's a little bit easier to define because it's recorded. You can look at it.
Yeah, and
right. Whereas when like Maddie, like what you said, if you just keep it in the back of your mind, but you don't verbally say a thing, or you get with your posse and you're like, hey, you and I are in the next round. Hey, real quick before you do that, like, you and I, we're gonna work together so I can get my win. It is a complicated thing to talk about, and it's a complicated thing to find an answer for, and that's obviously why we wanted to talk about this. But what were you gonna say? Sorry.
Yeah. No, I think you're actually describing two different scenarios. I think that the scenario that happened is very different from, like, talking beforehand to one of your friends and having a predetermined outcome that you want to happen. Maddie, you said something about, like, if I think it, I just don't say it. That's when it's okay. And I disagree with this. I think that it is your intent. I think that that's a big part of it, is Magic is not a game of words. I'm going to pithing needle Borborygmos. Okay, cool. I'm activate Borborygmos Enraged. That's the one I meant. That's not the one you said. Famous for changing
Yep,
the
big
rules
one.
of Magic and of player communication.
Yep.
Famous for that. Magic is not a game of words. In this past tournament, we had someone say, "No, so White Plume Adventure. I think it was White Plume Adventure. It enters. I pass priority on the initiative trigger. I'm now holding for when he's searching for his basic, and that's when I flashed in opposition agent. Sounds good. That's not how it works.
You're talking to the initiative guy here, dog.
Once priority is passed on the you gain the initiative trigger, you immediately go search your library. The entire table understood that that is the point that this player wanted to hold priority at. So instead of me saying, no, you explicitly said that you passed priority on this trigger, everybody knew exactly what this person meant. So I explained the stack and I said, no, the initiative trigger is still here. You responded to it. Opposition agent resolved. And now we are resolving the initiative trigger. Clarification so that the players know how to accurately time their response, and also just a small fix because everybody knew the intention. It's not a game of words.
That is the biggest thing,
Yeah.
and I think you nailed it earlier. You talked about a judge who might get called. Oh, you got to come look at it. The intent. It's hard to see it as a third party when you didn't see it happen. But as Nate pointed to,
Yes.
we were the third party at this event, and you can see by the video there is intent in the tone. I'm not trying to say like call anybody out, but that tone is what triggered everything. I hate to say it. If you would have offered a different, like, there's comments on the thread on the Reddit thread we were talking about that
There
says,
are, yeah.
if you would have let her go to combat or let them go to combat, it would have been a different situation because it's different. But you did it too soon and your tone to it. But
yeah, actually, if you want to talk about that, I would be more than happy to talk about that.
Yeah, that
was great. Something is that was something that I took that after like review as well. I've realized that I believe I was right in that the player was intending to collude, because after reviewing it, we kind of did like a big old breakdown of this. The Rocco player, I believe, was trying to go to combat. They have a potential. They have a piece on board that could potentially get a win piece.
And there's an for those.
The arena rector.
Yep.
However, they have no mana, and it has to die and hit the graveyard and still be in the graveyard when the trigger resolves in order for its ability to take effect, right? So they don't have any mana up. The Rocco player doesn't have any mana up. They have no way of getting this thing, based on the board state that I can see, into the yard. There's an Entomb on the stack from the Mardu player and nothing else. So player 2 is trying to say that it's a prisoner's dilemma, that it's a lose-lose, that we, player 1 and player 2, are the only ones that have interaction. We're the only ones that can do anything here. I can stop you. I can't stop him. It's a prisoner's dilemma. When in reality, there is no prisoner's dilemma. There are 0 win attempts on the board or on the stack. So it's the player's intention to try to politic their opponents, which is totally within their rights, and that's how the game is played. But it's their intention to coerce and to lead them to believe that they are in a situation which they, in fact, are not in. And they are doing it in order to gain an incentive. And this is one thing I want to talk about. Match points. Are those an in-game or out-of-game incentive? They are a result of a match outcome. Can you bargain with them? If you do bargain with them, how is it different than saying, I'm not going to swords your commander, I'm going to save it for this devoted druid, whatever? Is there a difference? Are they in-game? Are they out of game? I have talked to a good L2 who's one of my friends, and he says that if it's something that goes on in the game, or if it's something that, like this, is a result of the match conclusion, then it can't be used as an incentive because it is itself within the game. That's for 1v1. Is it different in a multiplayer? I also had someone kind of play devil's advocate to that, saying that if you are playing for tournament points that are converted into a prize, then that's definitely something that's outside the game. because you're playing for 11 points. 11 points gets me in the top 16, and that doubles my money. I'm playing for that point because it's a cash or whatever monetary incentive for me to play to. So can I barter that? I'm curious as to what you guys think. Do you think the tournament points are within or without the game?
I don't think you should be able to barter your tournament points because, like you just said, it turns into it turns into that prize. Because, like you said, you make top 16, you've already got a prize. It doesn't matter if you make it the top 4 or sometimes you see the top, I think 32 when it's a big enough tournament. If you make that, you still get your prize, which is usually double what you entered in for and some. But I don't believe you should be able to say, hey, homie, we're both at 10. We get the draw. We're at 11. We could be in the bubble. I feel like that is outside game information, and it shouldn't be brought to the table during the game. Pre-game, you could say something. Like, while you're, like, the mulligan, like, not mulligan, while you're, like, sitting down at the table before things are set, you might be able to say, hey, we're both at 10. Do you want to get a draw? And you say, yeah, cool, but they say no, cool, play. It's like you said, the opponent says no, you just play. What about you, Nate? What's your thoughts?
I mean, I do completely agree with you. I don't think that they should be used as some kind of bartering, but I do also understand the point of saying, oh, well, if you get points, it then therefore converts into some kind of payout, quote unquote, right?
Outside the game.
Right, exactly. And so it is it is just an interesting talking point that, like, you know, I've seen some comments that people are like, oh, well, draws should be no points. Well, then that causes kind of another slew of problems. So there's really no clean fix for any of this. I will say that what's been really helpful, because I've talked to the TOs and I've talked with you, Chandler, as well, that, like, it used to be so much worse when the software would just pair people that are and then it was just like draw, like one win, and then everyone would draw for like the rest of the time until like the last round, right? And now the software has been updated, thank goodness, where it doesn't really have that problem anymore. Well, not as frequently, I should say.
Yeah, to just like expand on that. So it's not like True Swiss. It's not going to put all of the top players up in the same pod every single time. It'll put you, it'll pair you with people who have similar points. And usually what it's going to do is put 2 people who can take a draw with 2 people who can't take a draw. So then you have kind of a full pod of people who are kind of forced to play because it eliminates these intentional draws. Yeah, it got pretty bad for a while. We would have like the top 2 pods after round 1. They would both be like, Judge, we're going to intentionally draw. All right, pod 2. All right, Judge, we're going to intentionally draw. And it was just like, okay.
And there's nothing wrong with that, right?
It makes sense tournament-wise, but
no, absolutely.
Yeah. And they were well within their rights to do that, right? Because there's nothing against that, right? There's nothing to incentivize them to not do it.
Yeah, and it just becomes a real feels bad moment when you're one of the 1 or 2 that don't want to do that, and you get bullied into doing it.
So let's talk about that, though. What if you do get bullied? What if you are in that situation where they've talked, you're player 1 and player 3, you guys need the win. You can't take the draw. Player 4 and player 2 can take the draw. They're fine, and they've offered it. Let's draw out. And you guys are like, no, I need the win. Well, for some odd reason, they took out player 3, and it's just you. Like, are you allowed to call the judge and be like, I'm being bullied here? Like, where do you get to, like, step in, I guess, Chandler? Where would you step? Like, where can someone be like, Judge, I feel like I'm being 2v1, or I guess at the time, 2v1v1. I mean, like you said earlier, you get to experience it.
To start it off kind of lightly, always call a judge. There's no point where you shouldn't call a judge. If you're ever unsure, call a judge. But jokes aside, that's the whole thing. There's nothing in the rules or in the infraction procedure guide against that. That is tournament EDH play. That's how it goes. It's not against the comprehensive rules. But, and this is something I really wanted to talk to you guys about, it seems like it's a breach of the social contract. It seems like it's just a dick move and that you shouldn't be doing it. How do you fix that as a TO?
How do you write that?
How do you do that?
I think Salt City actually hit it on the head. I think they made the voice appendum that said, hey, if you collude, as we described it, like we have talked about today, if you are working together to a non, what is it? How did you say it?
To a predetermined outcome. Yeah.
If you work towards that with somebody else and it's obvious, it's judge. It's if you can obviously point it out. Homie did an opposition on his turn, but he opposition on my fetch when he intuitioned. What the hell? Like that's an obvious one. That's a clean line. Like homie, let your homie plays intuition, you let it go off. Next player plays a fetch on a Gitrog, and you're like, oh, opposition dog, I gotta stop that.
But is it? But is it a clean line? Gitrog is gonna, maybe he's gonna grab another. I don't know. Maybe he's gonna grab a surveil land, and he's gonna vampiric tutor, and he's gonna put something into the bin. How do you?
But why wouldn't you stop the intuition?
I'm playing devil's advocate.
Yeah, it's true. It is, and that's the whole point.
Exactly, but
the social contract, though, it falls back to that, like you said.
That's what this whole conversation really is, right? And I'm curious because you did say earlier that you had other judges, because like obviously other judges will sometimes look to other judges because they're like, did I make the right call?
They should.
Out of curiosity, like, should. Let's be
clear.
Out of curiosity, with the ones that you talked to,
Mm-hmm.
were most people just like on your side? Was this a point of contention in the like talking to judges, or what did you find?
So it's actually very interesting. I have talked with a few judges who mostly do CDH, and they are in almost a full consensus that this was like a correct call to be made, especially with the TO's rule about no collusion as it's set forth in a player meeting, yada yada. And then the judges who I've talked to that either don't play CDH or don't really judge CDH have kind of been the opposite, and they have said there's no infraction by the MTR, by the IPG. There's no infraction here. You can't really penalize a player for politicking in a social game and for taking these actions when it's not an infraction of any sort. And that has been very interesting for me to see two judges that I highly respect. One of them who judges and plays CDH regularly say that yes, this is good, this is grounded, it was handled correctly, and then one who doesn't say no, it doesn't sound like it was handled correctly. So even within the judge community, there's a big divide. It's also been very interesting to see the community's response.
Oh, definitely.
Because from what I can tell, from what I've seen on the video clip, and there's I think there's like a few Reddit posts about it, but the one that I was looking on, most of the community is for upholding this type of call. What do you do when the rules don't say anything about this, but the whole community, not the whole, the majority of the community agrees that they don't like it and that they don't think it's fair and that they don't think it's good or healthy for the game? What do you do about it? Do you go just by the rules? Do you go just by the community? Where's the medium? There has to be a happy medium, and we don't have one. When a card becomes bad in a format, becomes a problem in a format, Oko, Uro, the One Ring in Modern,
Nadu.
I can't beat the One Ring, so what do? Nadu, I play the One Ring because I can't beat it. My mirror match has a pretty good win percentage, except if they play the One Ring. Then I just lose. So I play the One Ring. When play patterns become a problem, when it just becomes unfun, when you're getting killed turn 2 with Hogak, it doesn't feel good. It's not fun. When a Nadu turn takes upwards of 60 minutes to complete because you want them to go through every single thing and they're not running Thassa's Oracle, right. It's bad play patterns, it's bad tournament etiquette. When these things happen, Wizards takes action. They end up banning Hogak, they end up banning Nadu, they end up banning the One Ring. Why, when it's something that is a problem of this caliber, but it's social rather than comprehensive rules, why does this not get any traction?
I believe, if you don't mind me cutting off here, I believe the reason it doesn't get any traction is because, I hate to say it, this format is seen as just the social format. How do you get competitive out of the social format? And I think that's where where WotC needs to step in and work with this community and work with the community that they've put together, but also the community in whole, reach out to these TOs, reach out to these judges that do CEDH events. What's your thoughts? How about reach out to the EU that's been running these events? They have their own appendant that's slightly bigger and a little bit more comprehensive, or the Portugal group that's doing it. Like, there's multiple.
The Portugal, they have a great thing about coercion and how coercion is an unsporting conduct major. You can get a game loss for trying to coerce someone if you do it too much, or if you try to collude. Yeah, you're right. They have their own thing.
And I think it's awesome that the community's doing that, but we need to go as a community now, and why can't we grab all these things? And WotC, you now have the format. How about you help us? How about you get a representative from all these different regions and say, hey, this is our thought. I know CEDH is not your big format here, you guys, but I'm sorry, I've been playing CEDH for long enough. A lot of the CEDH players like to bling out their decks, so I think if you like us enough, it'll help you out. But Nate, what about your thoughts here? What's the one on this question?
Well, I think in order to kind of illustrate Chandler's point is there has been sort of attempts made to fix this, right? Is because you said, oh, well, you have the community side, but then you have like the comprehensive rules side of it. So where does that meet? And I think the TOs is kind of where that meets, right? Because if they have a community issue that needs to be handled, that's why we have this ruling here where we're at, right? Other places, they're not going to say anything about a collusion rule. They're not going to say an example at the start of the tournament. And if someone calls out for it, the judge is going to go, well, what do you want me to do? Not against the rules. So I'm not going to say anything, right? But our TOs, they saw this as a previous thing that has come up, and even though, yes, it may not be in the comprehensive rules guide for their tournaments, they essentially made it a rule, right? And obviously that is where you come in as a head judge to say, well, my TOs have said this is against the rules. I am enforcing
to be impartial and to enforce the rules. Yes.
Correct. So we have taken some steps to help with that, but I agree with you 100%, Maddie. I would like a little bit of a little bit more eyes on this from the higher up, from like actual WotC,
some guidance, some clarification,
yeah, something to work with. But I also understand what people have been saying on the internet, that this is. It's complicated. It's where do you draw that line? Oh, well, if a person says specifically, in this order, I intend to do and this, then that is a rules violation. But you can't do that. That's impossible.
On some of the comments I was talking about, that when you're not at a tournament, you wouldn't have to worry about this. When you're just playing CEDH with your friends on a Friday night,
right? If
there's not a prize on the line, you wouldn't have to worry about this. You'd just be the dick for doing that. You'd get from your friends, be like, did you just spite play me so he could win? Like you that would be the thing. But in a tournament, because we are trying for prizes, that's where I think you get that collision.
So does breaking the social contract now cause an infraction? Like, is that kind of what we're trying to like?
But how do you define the social contract?
Exactly.
And that's what I'm agreeing with you. Like, how do we, and Chandler right here has it right here. Chandler's got a social contract. He's gonna lay it out for us. You got 3 minutes. Go for it.
All right.
3 minutes, man.
Short contract. Here, right? You already have all the answers, right? But it's been an interesting topic, and like obviously we want people to talk about this. The thing that I don't want, and that I've already seen a bit of, is this really, it's not all bad, but there is a bit of people just butting heads over this. This was a tournament that we here organized, like, well, not me and Maddie, but, the TOs here organized, and they decided to have a ruling. That ruling was broken here in our tournament, and a call was made. So whether you agree with it or not, it happened, and the rule was enforced. And we just want to get eyes on this, to talk about it, not to yell
bring it to light
at each other about this. Yeah. Right? Like we all want a solution problem. Like we all want this taken care of. And if we are saying, oh, this judge is dumb, why would he disqualify someone for something that's not in the rules? Well,
you don't talk about my channel like that.
But it also, they did break a rule as according to the TOs, right? So
yeah,
I'm glad that there's a lot of eyes on this, but I want everyone to be civil about this conversation, because we all want to fix. It's not going to be immediate. It's not going to happen overnight, but this is why we're talking about this. This is why we made a video on it. We considered not making a video on it, but we decided that this was too important to not talk.
And if this is the starting point, I know there's been a lot. There was also a call up in, was it MagicCon Chicago?
Yeah, just the same weekend.
What was this? Yes,
the same weekend.
Yes, there was a big thing about this. if this is the straw that breaks the camel's back, and this is what gets the ball rolling, and this is kind of the starting point for this, then I'm all for that, and I think that that is overall a positive thing. I think I said it at the beginning. If we go forward with this and we do research and we do testing and there's discussions and then we realize that this was handled incorrectly and that this type of thing shouldn't have happened, then I view that as a positive thing. This is a learning experience. This is new ground. This is new territory. Here in Salt Lake, we're trying to pioneer it.
I hope I'm not stepping on Salt City's feet here, but
Yeah.
we want to build this community that if you're a new player and you come out to a Salt City event, you have a great experience. But
Yeah.
you nail it right in the head. That's our biggest thing that we all want to do here, and especially here at Turning Point and Salt City. And that's why we've ultimately, I think, a big thing that we be able to collab together is we want to build a community. And we want to get people's opinion. Like Chandler said at the beginning of this episode, is if we come down and a week from now, head judge from WotC, one of them that says, hey, no, that's not collusion, take it back. Chandler's going to take that. Chandler will be like, okay, cool, I accept that. He'll go find the player. Chandler has shown that he will eat crow in a sense because that is the community making the next step forward. He is not.
I messed up a really big call at one of our at our 5K, and it was a dumb thing, and I just overlooked it, and I was like, nope, it ends here. That's done. I was wrong. For the integrity of the tournament, I went back, apologized to the pod. We changed the match result because what I had said directly influenced the match result. We changed the match result. We had a player leave because of it. I felt terrible. Another player felt very happy because it went from a draw to a win. But at the end of the day, I was wrong, and I did what I needed to do to rectify it and to keep the integrity of the tournament and my integrity as a judge. And that is something that I'm willing to do again. Like I said, I do believe that I made the correct call, especially with the rules that the TOs had set forth. And I thought it was interesting, Nate, how you said that you believe this is something that lies on the TOs. I think, as it's starting right now, that the TOs made a decision that they would, in some sense, kind of be a shepherd and try to guide the community to a play pattern that does not include, at the beginning, it was like as many intentional draws. And now it's something that is like, does not include collusion. And I think it's interesting that you say that you think it falls on the TOs. I believe that it's something that falls on the players. I don't think that collusion is something that a judge can enforce. You have to have extensive knowledge about the entire board state, every game action that's been taken. You have to know the players, so you know their intention. And but some of that is just going to be down to speculation. And then the judge becomes less impartial, which is not what the judge should be.
Never.
So then does it fall to the TOs? What if these TOs have different rules than the next TOs? And why are the TOs the ones that get to decide what is and what is not collusion? So if it doesn't fall on the TOs and it doesn't fall on the judge, the only other place that it can fall is on the players. The video that I was watching, actually just right before this, I think it was great. It said that the incentive to win should also be like a sense of pride.
Yeah.
That I played and I played my best and I did it legally and I did everything right and I got here to the top spot, and playing for that pride should be part of the game. And in the player meeting beforehand, if you tell people that that's what they're playing for and that that's what they should be, that that's what their incentive is, they're going to believe that. Maybe not all of them, but as a community, as the players, as the tournament goers, if that becomes something that you're playing for, I think this problem, if not disappears, it at least starts to disband. That this becomes much less of a problem if the players realize that they're playing for the glory.
No, absolutely.
Rather than just trying to play for a monetary incentive. I think that it's also a large responsibility of the TOs, if they are trying to cultivate their community, that they need to listen to the players of their community. That is one of the big reasons that we even mention collusion at all at the beginning of our player meetings, is because the community had a problem with it. They said, we don't like this. They said, we want something to be done against this. They said, it feels unfair, feels like bribery. And we said, okay, let's treat it like bribery. So the TOs listening to the community and doing what is best for the community should definitely be up there on the reasons that they make their rules.
And Chandler, I just want to say from both me and Nate, we thank you for giving us the clarity on a lot of the rulings on bribery, the fact that there is no ruling on collusion, but
Doesn't exist.
But how do you socially deal with it is something we're definitely got to talk about. So that would be so cool. Kind of cool as we progress forward, and hopefully, like we said, maybe this is the camel that broke the straw. Maybe this is the straw that broke the camel's back. Let's get that right. But before we do head out, Chandler, is there anything you want to do? Wrap up? Anything you want to finally say, or give your final last notes?
I love the game.
There we go.
That's why I do this. I do this because I love the game. I do it because I love learning. I love learning in the game and all of its intricacies. I love our community here. I think we have the best CEDH community in the world. I really do. I think we have it right here in Salt Lake. I'm proud to be a part of it. This is what we do everything for. I think if the community wants something to change and they think that there's a need for change, then that should be addressed. And that's what I'm trying to do. That's why I'm trying to raise awareness of this.
Absolutely.
And it's all for the love of the game.
Again, you guys, remember to always stay confident and not condescending, and we'll catch you guys next week. So.
And Chris, you can put this at the end of the video if you want to. But big congratulations to Chris. He became a dad the other day. I wanted to say congratulations on the channel. He can put this on if he wants to, but big congrats to him.
All right, we'll catch you guys later.